Snow was falling in slow, heavy flakes that afternoon, the kind that clung to eyelashes and muted every sound. The main street of West Haven, Wyoming, was quiet except for the low hum of a diner's neon sign and the occasional crunch of boots on frozen ground. Maggie Andrews sat on a bench outside that diner, her 10-year-old daughter Emily curled into her side, small hands hidden inside her coat sleeves because her gloves had been lost somewhere between the last bus stop and here. Their duffel bag sat at Maggie's feet, it seems worn, the zipper stubborn. It was the sum total of everything they owned. They had been running for months, not from the law, not from anything criminal, but from the slow, crushing collapse of the life they'd once had. Maggie had been a wife, a homeowner, a woman with plans. That was before the factory her husband worked at closed, before the bills piled too high, before his heart attack left her not just widowed but drowning in debt. She'd sold the house, sold the car, sold everything that could be sold. For a while she found odd jobs, washing dishes, cleaning motels, but they never lasted. Now, her last hope, an old sedan, had sputtered and died on the edge of town that morning. The mechanic's estimate had been laughable if it hadn't been so devastating. Emily was trying to be brave, smiling faintly whenever her mother looked down at her, but Maggie could feel the tremor in her daughter's small frame. She had told Emily the grilled cheese they just shared was plenty for her, but Maggie hadn't eaten all day. Hunger made her lightheaded, worry made her nauseous. It was then that a shadow fell across them. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a weathered brown coat and a cowboy hat tilted low against the snow. His boots were scuffed, his jeans worn, and his eyes, clear and unflinching, were the pale blue of winter sky after a storm. He didn't look like a man who wasted words. "Your daughter needs a home," he said quietly. Maggie's stomach tightened. She looked up at him, unsure if this was pity or something else. After a heartbeat, he added, "And my daughter wants a mother." It was the strangest proposition Maggie had ever heard, and for a moment she could only stare. He introduced himself as Luke Carson, owner of a cattle ranch about 10 miles out of town. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving him with Sophie, a little girl who hadn't smiled much since. He'd been eating at the diner, saw Maggie and Emily outside, and something in him told him not to walk past. "I've got a guest room," he said. "Plenty of work. You can stay as long as you need. No strings." Her instincts screamed caution. She didn't know this man. But the cold was seeping into her bones, and Emily's lips were turning pale. Luke's voice carried no slick charm, no hint of danger, just plain-spoken sincerity. That night, they rode with him in his old pickup truck, the snow swirling in the headlights. The ranch appeared out of the dark like something from another time, white fences, a red barn, a big farmhouse with golden light spilling from its windows. Inside, the air smelled of bread and wood smoke. Sophie was small for her age, her brown hair falling into her eyes. She didn't speak much, just handed Emily a mug of cocoa and sat beside her in quiet companionship. The first weeks were tentative. Maggie worked hard, cooking meals, scrubbing floors, even helping with chores in the barn. Luke was courteous but reserved, always careful not to intrude. Sometimes, she caught him watching her when she laughed with the girls, but he looked away quickly, as though he wasn't ready to let himself feel anything. It didn't take long for her to see that the ranch, though beautiful, was in trouble. The drought last summer had left the pastures dry, hay prices were high, and the bank was tightening its grip. She overheard Luke one night on the phone, talking about selling part of the herd to cover the mortgage. That night, she lay awake, the weight of his unspoken burdens pressing on her. She knew what it was to carry too much alone. One morning, she approached him with an idea. She'd seen the old orchard and the chicken coop out back. She could bake pies, breads, and preserves to sell in town and to tourists. Luke was hesitant. "It's a lot of work," he said. "And I don't want you feeling you owe me anything." "I want to," she replied. "Let me try." The weeks that followed were a blur of flour and sugar, kneading dough before sunrise, bottling jams late into the night. Luke built her a small roadside stand out of scrap lumber. Emily and Sophie helped gather eggs and pick apples. Slowly, the stand began drawing customers. Word spread about Carson Ranch Kitchen. It wasn't enough to solve everything, but it was a start, and for the first time in a long time, Maggie felt useful. But life on a ranch is never free from trial. In February, a blizzard swept through, knocking down fences and scattering part of the herd. Luke prepared to ride out alone, but Maggie insisted on helping. Together they fought the wind and snow, hauling feed and guiding cattle back. At one point, Maggie slipped on the ice, and Luke caught her, holding her close against the wind. "You're tougher than you think," he told her. When spring finally came, there was a lightness in the air. The girls were inseparable now, running barefoot through the grass. Luke began smiling more, his laughter deep and warm. And yet, trouble still loomed. The bank set a deadline. If he couldn't make a payment in 3 months, he'd lose the ranch. Maggie refused to let that happen. She threw herself into expanding the stand, baking through the night, organizing a small ranch fair with crafts, food, and rides. The whole town came, and for the first time in years, Luke's ranch felt alive with music and laughter. They didn't raise enough to erase all the debt, but they raised enough to buy time. One evening, as the sun set over the pastures, Luke stood with her on the porch. The girls were chasing fireflies, their laughter carrying on the breeze. "When I first saw you," Luke said, "I thought I was offering you a place to stay. But you've given this place its life back. You've given Sophie back her smile. And," he paused, voice thick with emotion, "you've given me back my heart." He took her hands in his rough, calloused ones. "Maggie, will you marry me? Not because I want to save you, but because I can't imagine a life without you in it." Emily and Sophie came running up just as Maggie said yes, tears shining in her eyes. The wedding was simple: white wildflowers, friends and neighbors gathered under the open Wyoming sky. Emily got her home. Sophie got her mother. Luke got his family back. And Maggie, who once thought she had nothing left, found that sometimes, the greatest miracles happen when two broken hearts decide to heal together.